Last time, I left you with a warning. I said a government once tried to weaponize the idea that consciousness can reach across distance. Today, I opened that file. And I want to be clear about what this is before we start. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a real program funded with real tax money that the CIA itself declassified in 1995. It had a name, Project Stargate. And here is what they were actually doing. They would sit a person in a sealed room, hand them nothing but a set of coordinates on a piece of paper, no photograph of the target, no name, nothing, and then ask them to describe a place thousands of miles away that they had never seen. I was a quantum mechanics researcher. So let me be honest with you, from the very first minute, I am not here to sell you proof of psychic powers. There is no proven superpower at the end of this video. What there is something stranger. A reason that a serious government kept a straight face and kept funding this for the better part of 2 decades. And by the end, I am going to show you what this whole story implies about your own mind in my model. So stay with me. Let us start with the obvious question. Why would any government spend a cent on something that sounds like a magic trick? The answer is the Cold War. In the early 1970s, American intelligence became convinced that the Soviet Union was pouring real resources into what they called psi research telepathy, remote perception, the mind as a weapon. And the logic at the time was brutally simple. If our adversary is taking this seriously, and if there is even a small chance it is real, then ignoring it is the dangerous move, not studying it. So they decided to study it. The work landed at a respected institution, the Stanford Research Institute, SRI. It was led by 2 physicists, Harold Puthoff and Russell Targ. Their central subject, in the early days, was a painter and self-described psychic named Ingo Swann. I want you to notice something there. This did not begin in a back room with candles and crystals. It began in a research lab run by physicists under controlled procedure. That is exactly why it is so hard to wave away. Now, here is the method, and the method is the interesting part. Swann helped develop what they called coordinate remote viewing. You give the subject no information about the target at all. Only coordinates, numbers, like a latitude and longitude. And you ask them to sketch and describe whatever impressions come. Why be so strict about it? Because the whole point was to kill the easy explanations. No cues, no leading. The question they were asking was not, do you believe? It was colder than that. Can this be made to work as a repeatable procedure? And then there are the sessions that people still argue about to this day. One subject, a former police officer named Pat Price, is reported to have described the layout of secret installations, buildings, equipment, details, starting from nothing but coordinates. And in 1973, Ingo Swann is said to have described a ring around Jupiter before the Pioneer spacecraft made its close pass. A claim that people have been fighting over as a hit or a miss or a lucky guess ever since. And let me stop and be straight with you, because this is where everyone overstates. I do not know if those were real acts of distant perception or vague impressions that got generous credit after the fact, or chance. Nobody has settled it. I am not asking you to believe the viewings were real. Hold them exactly as what they are. Reported, contested, never proven. Keep that frame the entire time. Because the part that actually matters comes later, and it does not depend on any single session being true. What I want you to sit with first is the scale of this, because this was not one strange afternoon. The research grew into an operational military program. A dedicated unit was set up at Fort Meade in Maryland, and remote viewers were tasked against real intelligence questions. Over the years, it changed names again and again: Grill Flame, Centerlane, Sunstreak, and the final umbrella name was the one you now know, Stargate. Across more than 20 years, multiple agencies were involved. And think about what that means. The budget process during the Cold War was not gentle. If this produced nothing at all, it is very hard to explain how it survived for 2 decades. And yet, if it had been a reliable weapon, they would still be using it today. That is the real discomfort of this story. For 20 years, it lived in the one place nobody is comfortable with. Not clearly real, not clearly nothing. So how did it end? In 1995, the CIA asked an outside body, the American Institutes for Research, to evaluate the whole thing. And the evaluation split in 2. A statistician, Jessica Utz, concluded that the data showed a statistically significant effect. Something was there. A psychologist, Ray Hyman, argued that the methods were flawed and that none of it proved anything paranormal. The CIA's final call was practical, not reliable enough to be useful for actual intelligence work. So they shut it down and they declassified the files. But read that carefully, because the wording matters more than anything in this video. Not reliable enough to be useful is not the same sentence as proven to be nothing. Those two are worlds apart. The honest position, the scientific position, leaves this one gray. And a gray that big asks a question it will not let you put down. If even some of those hits survive the doubt, then is information actually tied to a location at all? Here is the turn. And from this point on, I am drawing a hard line. Everything up to now was the public record. What follows is my model, my interpretation, because you can set aside completely whether remote viewing is real. That is not what grips me. What grips me is the question underneath it. What would have to be true for it to even be possible? And there is only one answer. Consciousness would have to not be locked to a single point in space. And here is the part most people do not realize. Physics already knows that the universe itself is not local. It is called quantum entanglement. Two particles can be linked so that measuring one instantly tells you about the other, no matter how far apart they are. Einstein hated it. He called it spooky action at a distance and assumed it had to be a mistake. It was not a mistake. The experiments confirming it earned the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics. Non-locality is not science fiction. It is measured, established fact. At its deepest level, this universe does not treat distance the way your eyes do. Now, I have to be careful here, and I will be. I am not telling you that entanglement is the physics that powers remote viewing. No one has shown that. What I am saying is this. In my model, the fact that the universe is non-local and the idea that awareness might be non-local are two faces of the same intuition. One is proven physics. The other is my philosophy. Do not let me blur them, and I will not. So let me put my actual claim on the table. In my model, there is a field that does not obey distance, an invisible layer where information is not pinned to a place. Call it the field. And this is where everything we have built together clicks into one piece. In the hologram video, I said reality is a projection lifted out of information. In the dimensions video, I said the future you want already exists, one level up. Today is the last piece. You, the observer, are not trapped at a single point inside all of it. So watch what happens to the idea of manifestation now. If a viewer in a sealed room is reported to reach across the planet with attention alone, then your awareness, too, is not sealed inside the spot where your body is sitting. Manifestation in this model is not magic that conjures objects out of air. It is this: reaching across the distance, across space, and across time to the possibility you are focused on, touching it in the field and bringing it home into your present. And notice the remote viewers did not do it by straining. They did it through a disciplined, quiet procedure. This is the same. The rudder is attention. When you observe steadily, from the version of you who already has the thing, that focus is what moves your anchor across the field. So let me clear up two ways people get this wrong, because they matter. First, do not walk away saying remote viewing is proven, or that I proved it. I did not. I am not building on a proven superpower. I am building on a single question the whole story forces open: is the mind really local? And on the one piece of hard physics that says the universe is not. Second, this is not focus hard and the furniture rearranges itself. That is not the claim. What crosses the distance is attention, not objects. You are not forcing your present to mutate. You are reaching steadily for a branch where it is already real, and holding your inner state is the entire skill. It is the steering, not the trick. So in practice, it comes down to three things. Treat what you want as something that already exists out there in the field, not as something you have to manufacture from nothing. Hold the observation of being the one who already has it. And when your present wobbles and tries to drag you back, do not answer it with your old self-image. Last time I called that scratching the screen. Same mistake, one field over. So the hologram, the staircase of dimensions, and now the field are all saying one thing together. You are not trapped at the single point where your body sits. What you want is not far away and out of reach. It is one focus away in a layer that does not obey distance, waiting for you to become the version of yourself who already lives there, which is the line I want to leave you with. My awareness is not trapped in this body or in this moment. I reach across the distance to what I focus on, and I bring it home. Say it slowly and mean it. My awareness is not trapped in this body or in this moment. I reach across the distance to what I focus on, and I bring it home. If that reached something in you, write it in the comments, in your own words. There is a reason I keep asking. Something happens when many people hold the same line at once. And one last thread, because it leads straight into where we go next. We just spent this whole video on consciousness reaching out across distance, which forces the next question: what if the simple act of looking is already deciding what is real? Next time, I open the one experiment that quantum mechanics has never been able to explain away in 100 years. The experiment they tell you when you study physics to stop worrying about. I will see you there.